Hello and welcome back to the YouTube channel of Bethel Evangelical Free Church Hanley. I'm Pastor Gervais Charmley, and this is another video in the series on churches in the Derbyshire Peak District. This is the Church of St John the Baptist, Chelmorton. Now, the oldest part of the current building is 13th century, and it's the south aisle arcade. But there is some old stonework in the porch, which we'll see at some point, which indicates that the 13th century church replaces a much older building, 12th century building at the latest, on this same site. How long has there been a church here? We don't know. There's no record of it in the Domesday Book. That doesn't mean it wasn't here. That just means that it wasn't taxed for some reason. The building is, as we see it today, it's a 13th century building that's been enlarged in the 14th century and then again in the 15th century. It's had the very common 15th century practice of creating a clerestory and then altering the roof line, which makes for a shallower pitch roof, but also means you've got your clerestory here. And of course the clerestory allows for this chancel arch to still be here. Whereas if they'd just taken the roof line or the roof as it was, then and just lowered the pitch, then you'd have got a chancel arch that would then be sticking up above the pitch of the roof, and of course that costs a lot of money to fix. The clerestory also, of course, has this great function of admitting light to the building. We've got plaster on the walls here, which is a great help. And it's a lovely building to look at, a lovely building to explore. So we'll have a look around and point out some of the important features. But first of all, Chelmorton is over 1,200 feet above sea level. This is one of the this is the highest church with a spire in England. There are other churches that are higher up, like that at Flash in the Staffordshire Moorlands, which is the absolute highest up church in Britain, but none of the others have spires. None of the others are this big and impressive. This is quite a big church. It has a transept. It's not cruciform, but it's sort of funny kind of T-shape. But we'll have a better look around as we go. So, without further ado. Now, as usual, we start here at the west end because this is liturgically where you're supposed to start. This is the end of the church furthest away from the chancel. And here at the west end we have, as we just turn around, we have the font. Now, the font is 15th century, I believe. Certainly it has that sort of 15th century look about it. It's local stone. Of course, everything here is local stone because there's a lot of stone around here. Carved, you can just see here the letter M, carved with various symbols. I'm not sure what it's supposed to be. Probably not a sword hilt. But we have these, looks like a T, doesn't it, there? It's an S. And there's more letters. So it's mostly letters. Whether they represent local families or whether they represent saints, I'm not sure. Now, here is just talking about the south arcade. You can see that you've got these round-headed arches, and this is a diagnostic indicator of the 13th century. The north aisle arcade has pointed arches. This is 14th century. It's a bit later, and you can see there's no windows here because it's the north side. This is where the icy blast comes from. There's the north door, as was, and it's been filled in. North doors, as we said before, they have this function in baptisms in the Middle Ages, that they are open as part of the exorcism. And of course, with the Reformation, that kind of ceremonial disappears. There we have the font on its nice base. It does all appear to be original. Above there's a couple of glass cases. One appears to be holding a stonemason's mallet. The other's definitely holding somebody's pipe. The stone element of the screen here is 14th century. It's probably just before the Black Death it's put up. The wooden bit is later, but the stone there is medieval, and it would probably originally have had a wooden screen built atop it, as we see here. Of course, it would have been there would have been a rood loft at some point, but all trace of it up here has disappeared. Here's the organ, a single manual with pedal board, quite a nice little instrument. We have here the War Memorial, Horace D. Heinz, DLI, killed in action in France, Easter Sunday 1917, age 21. And we have here the Roll of Honour, those who served, but also tells us who the vicar was at the time, Alfred Holmes, M.A., and then John Kidd and Herbert Bagshaw, the church wardens. Back to the organ, we have no maker's board here. There is a label saying who's looking after it, but you've only got seven stops, single manual. But it's obviously got quite a nice organ here. Won't try and open it actually. You can see this stoop. Oh, sorry, not stoop. There's a piscina. Quite a nice piscina here. There's a little face at the top. In what was the North Aisle Chapel, one of those rather regrettable Victorian stone pulpits, which is of course partially hiding that stone screen, and is a different stone. You can see it's based slightly on the screen though, so it's not as obvious as it might otherwise be. We've got our transept in here, and here you've got this clearly is in some respects the children's chapel now. Side altar here. This would be used now for little for smaller, more informal gatherings. These embroidered panels show something of the history of the area of the Normans. This is some of the stones that are carved stones you can find in the porch. The Middle Ages is the church, of course. 19th century, we have a picture there of the primitive Methodist chapel, now closed. And the 20th century, modern industry, and the phone box, which is there's a unique phone box in the village. Now we are looking back towards the organ. So we proceed then back into the church and then up past the organ. It's a magnificent instrument. Past the organ up into the chancel. Now this is, of course, this was the high status part of the church. There's a number of memorials here. This is Jane, the wife of Joan Marsden of Manchester, born at Beverley. Early in life she gave her heart to God and adorned the gospel of her Saviour. As daughter, wife, mother and friend, during a severe affliction she experienced those consolations which religion only can afford, a resignation to the divine will and reliance upon the merits of her Redeemer. Also of Jane Key, daughter of the above, born January the 21st, 1804, died January the 21st, 1809, intelligent, dutiful and affectionate, she feared God. Ye sorrowing friends, who love in twilight's hour, to weep as o'er the sacred dust ye glide, for this sweet bud that ne'er became a flower, for this loved flower that withered, drooped and died. Why should ye mourn? They live, they flourish fair. Hope points to heaven and bids you seek them there. It's a lovely memorial, isn't it, that one? Here we just have a look west. There's a couple of steps up to the chancel, which makes it quite elevated. And one of the reasons for that is the lie of the land. The church is built on and partially into the side of a hill. So in fact, this step up to the chancel is a step up the hill on which the church is built, which is quite clever. You see there the pierced stone here for the screen. We have, here is John Boxton of Chelmorton, descended from pious ancestors, possessed a strong mental power, inflexibly upright in his conduct, and desirous of promoting the welfare of his neighbours. He spent his days content to breathe his native air in his own ground, resigning his spirit into the hands of him who gave it May the 23rd, 1814. And again it speaks of him as depending solely on the Redeemer. We have here, oh, watch out for the wind, the sun. Here's George Dale of Flag, of the county of Derby, and he died in 1683, and this is quite a typical sort of memorial for that age. It's quite ornamented. You've got all of this very detailed carving. That winged skull, bat-winged skull, again, is quite common. The sedilia is interesting here. You can see it's got these two faces, and the sedilia is it sticks out rather than being recessed into the wall. The piscina, it's quite a good one. We have a pre-Raphaelite type reredos. The east window has been somewhat affected by the climate here. It's quite common to find that. Another one, this is 1680, and again this time we've got two putty here. There are not a lot of memorials, but some very interesting ones. Now, as we look at here, we see that the shelf here for the sedilia is actually a reused grave marker, because it's got this cross on it. There's the piscina, and again that reredos, and looking all the way west from the chancel. This is quite a big church, and certainly it is one of the biggest in the area. It's even bigger than, well, there isn't a medieval church at Boxton, because Boxton has this problem that Boxton, the church, is the chapel of St. Anne. And Boxton was not as important as it is now. Chelmorton is the big church in the area. And as I say, it's one of the biggest churches in the Peak District. There are bigger ones further out, but this is the biggest in this area, and it must have been the mother church for miles around. Well, there we are. That's the interior here. Let's have a look then at the outside. Now, before we have a look at the outside of the building, this is the porch, which now contains a number of carved stones. You can see behind the bird door. You're not going to close the bird door to look at it, but you can see this is a part of a Norman door surround, and then you've got these carved pieces. Some of them you can see they see holy water stoup. Some of them are 14th century, but some of them appear to be older, and you've got this nice stone ceiling here. So that's the porch. So having had a look at the porch, let's go outside and look at the outside of the building. So here we are outside at Chelmorton, and you can see here behind me how big the church is. Now this is the south side. The south side is the side that faces towards the village and doesn't have a whacking great hill facing it. So this is the grander side. You see we've got this lovely spire here, we've got this aisle, we've got the transept rather, and then you've got this very grand, very high status 15th century chancel. So this is a big important building. You can also see how the ground slopes up to the chancel, and that's why you've got quite steep chancel steps, because why bother building something where you cut into the ground if you can just go up with the lie of the land? So we'll have a look around the outside. So we're on the side of the hill now in the graveyard, and we'll go up and have a look at the church and see if I can get a full view all the way up the spire. Well, so here we are, and say there's the spire. You can see and there we are, the lie of the land, as it were. So back up the hill a little bit. It's a little bit treacherous here, but yes, there we are, and pretty much the whole church in there. And as we go down, it's got a number of these interesting memorials. So here we have John Percival of Chelmorton Ditch, who died February 9th, 1858, I think it says, they're aged 45 years. Just in the last distressing hour was the Lord displays delivering power. The mount of danger is the place where we shall see surprising grace. It is always interesting to see these old memorials because, of course, they're all made by the local stonemason. There would have been a man in the village, or perhaps a number of men in the village, but more like just a man in the village who carved these memorials, and maybe generations of the same family. So we'll go round the north side first, and then we shall end up back at the south side by the porch. So here we can see this very, very fine stonework here on the chancel. This is no doubt built by a local bigwig to impress. There's that rather decayed now stained glass window. You can see here how the ground slopes steeply up from the north side of the church, and this is why the church is built here, right on the north end of the village. You can see that it just ends there. There's the village pub is a lot around. Yeah, I think that's a farmhouse up from the pub. But you see also how incredibly plain the north side is. It's really, who sees the north side? There's not houses over here, so why build something very grand? And the spire is, again, it's very plain. It hasn't got any of these crockety bits. It has got those openings up there, which really don't have very much of a function other than to let the wind through and to be decorative. Because the bells will be up here with those openings, bell openings. You can see there, this is the stair turret, gargoyle up there. But it is a very pleasant little village, this one. As we carry on around, very nice stonework of the tower, because again this is high status work. This is something of great importance, the tower. And there's the village down below. The church is high above the village, and of course the spire makes it even bigger. They've got these grand yew trees by the entrance, and there's the porch again. The porch looks like it's been built in the 19th century to give better access. You can see there's been a restoration outside here as well, and certainly the aisles seem to have been rebuilt in the 19th century. And there we are back at that very nice porch with its nice very nice stone ceiling. And we're back here again. You can see there's the clerestory and the tower. Well, we'll just say a few words in closing and then end the video. And so there we have it. St John the Baptist, Chelmorton. The top of the spire is the highest top of a spire in England, but that's only because the bottom of the spire is also the highest bottom of the spire in England. This magnificent structure, built, and certainly it would have been a marvel, a wonder for miles around when it was built. It's still in use today. We've seen some evidence of the faith and the lives of the people who once worshipped here. Well, thank you for joining me. I hope you enjoy this video. I enjoy making it and coming out here to explore the peak as we still have opportunity at this time. So again, thank you for watching, and may God bless you and keep you.